Well, I guess the journey began for me, oddly enough, in a little pizza chicken wing restaurant right across the street from my small law firm in Orlando, Florida, where in the summer of 2012, I saw a friend of mine, the National Commissioner of the Boy Scouts of America, and we had a brief conversation about the membership changes and the pressure that they were undergoing. And he assured me that after a 2-year study from 2010 to 2012, that the policy was locked down and was the absolute best policy for the Boy Scouts of America, and that it would not change.
The Boy Scout program is considering a change in its policy to allow open homosexuality.
The national conversation got heated in January when Boy Scouts of America announced it may overturn its ban on openly gay members.
Earlier this year, I caught wind of the fact that the Boy Scouts were considering changing their value system. And I knew at that point that there was going to be a tough fight. I decided in early February to go ahead and resign, but I would wait until we had a chance to address this issue and go all the way through the vote and make sure that I did what I could to stop it or at least slow down this erosion of values from the Boy Scouts. So I did what I could, but on June 30th, I decided to go ahead and turn in my resignation after 20 years with the organization.
I first heard about the membership issue, I believe it was it February maybe of 2013. The discussion started especially on LinkedIn forums where a lot of Scouters were discussing the subject, and it was kind of shocking actually to hear some of the opinions that they were sharing on those social media.
So I thought that was stunning to me, that within a 6-month period, that things could so radically change from being the absolute best policy for the BSA and the boys to now completely reversing their position on that. That's how On My Honor came about.
They came from across the country. Some have served in the Boy Scouts of America for decades. And now this faction of Scoutmasters, Eagle Scouts, and other leaders from Boy Scouting troops announcing the launch of OnMyHonor.net. The issue of open homosexuality within the Boy Scouts has sparked intense and heated debate over the past year. Gay advocates criticizing the ban as discriminatory and contradicting Scouts' values, while this coalition feels the exact opposite.
My first interaction with the OnMyHonor.net group was coming into Orlando and joining a group as we prepared to announce the formation, and was so encouraged to find God had already been preparing hearts for like-mindedness. So it just was, again, a divine appointment.
My journey with On My Honor started back earlier this year. A phone call from a good friend of mine said, hey, are you interested in going to Florida to meet with a group of like-minded people to voice your concerns over the vote, which had not taken place at the time? I said sure. I was introduced to Mr. John Stemberger, and I attended an event down in Florida, met a lot of great people, and we openly voiced our concern because I represent a lot of parents, a lot of families.
Scouts and pack leaders opposed to lifting the ban on openly gay members lined the road outside the National Council meeting. The protest was organized by John Stemberger. He's a Scout leader from Orlando.
This will devastate the Boy Scouts. It'll devastate it legally, financially, and socially.
How?
Well, 200 to 400,000 young people will leave the program. This is their own estimates if they make this change.
Opponents of the resolution say they don't want to exclude anyone, even boys struggling with their sexuality, but they also don't want the Boy Scouts to become a sexually charged organization.
Our main message is keep sex and politics out of the Boy Scouts.
Turn now to the historic decision by the Boy Scouts of America. For the first time in its long history, the organization will now admit openly gay scouts.
The Boy Scouts of America says it will accept gay scouts.
Well, the Boy Scouts of America this week voted to allow openly gay youth members to join the organization.
The vote today to allow open and avowed homosexuality in Boy Scouts will completely transform it into an unprincipled and risky proposition for parents.
The program is expected to lose sponsorships and as many as 1 in 10 Scouts.
Our initial response was disbelief. we were, like so many other families, we were just taken by surprise that the Boy Scouts that had been so much a part of our lives would break with this tradition and in such a radical way. We almost dealt like it as if we were grieving the loss of something. Initially we were just in denial. We were saying, well, certainly we'll be fine, our troop will be fine, our little group will be fine. But when the resolution finally came out, we saw that there was no way that we could resist this change, and there's no way that we could stay true to the organization.
And to inject sexuality and politics into the veins of scouting, it just is not right. Parents are not going to like that, and they're going to take their kids out. I am pulling my 2 kids out of scouting, very sadly and very disappointingly, because of this decision.
You think that
whenever the BSA is going to put the interest of gay rights activists over that of the safety and security of my 2 sons, that's a proposition that I can no longer support as a parent. It is a very sad decision. I remember being on Mike Huckabee's show, and he asked me if I was saddened by this, and I said, I have 4 Norman Rockwell prints, Boy Scout prints, in my office and some in my home. And it's hard for me to even go by them and look at them without just being saddened. I mean, I want to weep.
Angered by that historical vote opening Boy Scouts to openly gay youth, some Scout leaders plan to break off and create a new organization. John Stemberger is the founder of OnMyHonor.net and says he is done with Boy Scouts. He says a meeting will take place next month in Louisville to create the new alliance.
So that meeting was historic for me. You see the men that came together, the women that came together, the convictions that they shared. I was impressed by the amount of time that these people had put into scouting, that their lives had really been in scouting, but impressed by their convictions and them saying that this is a wonderful thing that we're walking away from, but also the sense that no, this wonderful thing has walked away from us.
I attended the coalition meeting in Louisville, and my strongest impression coming out of there was that the Lord was really moving. We had 50 men and women together in a room, all with their own ideas as we came in. But through the time we were there, just a few hours, we really saw an emerging unity and sense of purpose. And we've seen that continue on through the development of the steering committee and the board.
It was a great meeting because you had denominational leaders, leaders of family values organizations, and experienced scouters from around the country, all collaborating in a thought process to get the new organization off the ground.
What struck me as being just amazing about the whole event was how God took that room of people and really worked through our hearts and our conversation to come to the conclusion that I think we all knew was the right conclusion at the end, which is to develop a Christ-centered program.
I was really impressed because the 50 or so national leaders that were there from various denominations and backgrounds, it was a very diverse group. They all agreed on the fact that this new organization would be Christ-centered, biblically based, and would really do all the things programmatically that the Boy Scouts was able to do, but do it with a much firmer value system.
After we fought the battle to keep the membership standards the same in the BSA, what I didn't expect is that once we did not prevail in that battle, that there were literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of parents and scoutmasters that were actually following us. And there were other organizations and other coalitions that were already planning on a new form of scouting organization.
We started to write program materials, especially with our author and BSA historian John Burkett from Tennessee and other devoted scouters. And it ultimately grew into a collaborative effort that included many experienced scouters writing program teams all over the country.
American Heritage Girls has for years wanted to be closely tied with a boys organization that was equally yoked, that was Christ-centered as American Heritage Girls is. And I feel really privileged that now I get to serve on both the board of American Heritage Girls and our new organization. That really seeing that prayer is being answered, that the Lord has brought us a partner.
I was on a camp out and a dad came up to me and with tears in his eyes, and he's looking at me and he said, Sean, I just want to thank you for inviting me out on this camp out. And I had to ask him why, and he said, that's the first time in 3 years I've spent this much time with my son. And that moment for me, I realized that we weren't just there for Christ for these kids, we were there for Christ for these families. And for us to not have a program where I can openly speak about my beliefs and my biblical following that I firmly believe in my heart of hearts, I have to walk away from that organization and go to something.
An alternative to the Boy Scouts, a new boys organization being developed, will focus on, quote, Christian faith and values.
Florida Family Policy Council releasing the details of its new faith-based character development program for boys by teleconference on Tuesday.
We will invite any boy of any religion, of any race, it doesn't really matter. However, the adults will have some requirements in terms of a standard Christian statement of faith.
But today, Stemberger says they've already heard from at least 30,000 people who support the idea.
So our focus is not going to be on, kind of sexual orientation. Our focus is going to be on sexual purity.
My hope is that we will have a battalion of young men graduating from our program that will be highly talented and highly motivated and have the skills, the manly skills that are necessary to go and take back our culture.
The society we're living in today is just in moral free fall. Things that were unthinkable just generations ago are not only thinkable, but they're being promoted as virtuous. And so we're seeing this kind of downward spiral of moral confusion all throughout our society. Our prayer would be that this new boys organization would really raise up a generation of men who are faithful fathers, husbands, citizens, and leaders that could help literally turn our country around.
My vision for the future is developing generations of courageous young men that are become godly citizens and husbands and fathers.
I really hope and pray that when we look back 20, 30 years from now, what we will see is a long line of boys who've become men who follow Christ with all their hearts and that go out and lead.
So I love that there's an organization that shares the values that I've tried to instill in my sons. And that's selfish for my own sons, but I'm also thrilled that there's going to be generations of boys that are going to benefit from the foundation that we're laying.
This new organization is going to have a bright future and really do what the Boy Scouts had a chance to do. We're resetting the clock and starting over with something far better.
While it is a sad thing, what's happened, we also are very excited about what's happening new. Because sometimes in life and in our faith, things have to die before they can come back to life better and stronger and charging a new path.